Any Transformer fan knows that the bots that we know and love didn't begin here on Earth. They were on Cybertron and some other planets first, and they had alt modes that were not of this Earth. Alt modes that we tend to call Cybertronian alt modes. So, after a few fan requests, the most recent one being from Sawyer, shout out to Sawyer, we're going to do this time around, as voted on by fans all across social media, the top 10 Transformer Cybertronian alt modes. That's going to be our focus this time around in the latest GotBot Countdown. Hey all, welcome back to the channel. I'm your host, your most humble of hosts, Dennis Moulton, aka GotBot. As always, man, please like, comment, share, of course, subscribe while you're at it, loud my baby. Hit that notification bell, please. It helps me out a ton and let you know when content of all sorts goes up here on the channel. Check out Machinery of Man, The Everything Factor, all the groups that I'm either a mod or an admin for, as well as all of my social media links. All of that in the description down below. Also in the description down below. And if you're in a position to help the channel to grow, you can use the donate link, you can check us out on Patreon, or you can see what we have to offer to you through Spring. Or of course you can always hit the join button right here on YouTube and become a channel member. And this is the top 10 Cybertronian alt modes. Now I'm going to kind of clear things up because in the voting there were some people who asked some questions that honestly were some good poignant questions to ask. For example, something like a Cyclonus, would that count? Or Scourge and the Sweeps, or Galvatron, because really they were given their new bodies by Unicron, so wouldn't that be a Unicronian alt mode? I get that argument. Some people said, what about something like the Prime Predacons, the like ancestors to the Autobots and Decepticons? I allowed those, even though we had things there like dragons, because they were, again, not of this Earth. And finally, a couple of people asked about Cosmos and said, he's definitely not an Earth alt mode, but I mean, he's not exactly Cybertronian. He's a UFO, right? Again, not of this Earth. So maybe it would have made more sense to call this a top 10 not of this Earth modes, as I tried to keep the floodgates open as wide as possible. So anything that's not of this Earth, anything that's alienish, I counted as Cybertronian. So a couple of these, when we get there, we'll talk about the slight caveat with it and where it might fit in. Nevertheless, let's start with our honorable mentions. And our honorable mentions include Afterburner, who basically turns into a Cybertronian motorcycle. Yeah, I get that. In fact, as a kid, I didn't even know he was a motorcycle. I didn't know really what he turned into. Chromia. Specifically, people voted for the Thrilling 30 Chromia, which does turn into kind of a light cycle, Cybertronian motorcycle type of thing. Some people voted for her G1, which is kind of a Cybertronian truck. And some people even voted for the Siege. But, again, it wasn't enough. Even altogether, it wasn't enough to put her on the list. She came close, though. And the last one here, one of my absolute favorites, just kind of recently had his partner, so to speak, released in some alternate colors, Topspin. Topspin is the other honorable mention, and of course when I say his partner in alternate colors, I'm referring to the Wreck and Rule Twin Twist that recently came out in the like Diaclone colors, right? So the honorable mentions, Afterburner, Chromia, Topspin. Twin Twist did have some votes, but he didn't have as much as Topspin. That's it for the honorable mentions. None of them actually made the final list. So who did? Well, you know what we're gonna do by now, man. We're gonna kick things off with number 10. But first, coming in at number 10, we have the flinty old warrior known as Cop. And he turns into a Cybertronian pickup. Why am I holding it this way? I'm holding it this way because as a kid, long before I ever saw the cartoon, I had Cup in my collection, and I thought he was a Cybertronian car, and I thought he drove this way. Now, all these years later, I look at it and I'm like, of course it's this way. This is his windshield, duh. And naturally, this is a pickup truck, right? I mean, it got no tailgate, and the sides don't really go up, but naturally, it's a pickup truck, right? Cup, pickup. You know why I didn't recognize it? Because it's a Cybertronian mode. I don't care all these years later. Yeah, he's a truck. Why not? Why not? If you go with the generations, he actually is an Earth mode truck, so why not be a Cybertronian truck? When it was this way, I always thought it was a weird looking car. This way, yeah, I could buy it more as a truck. Cop took the number 10 slot. Number 9 is one of the jets with forward swept wings, and it's one of the first ones, if not the first one, to have said wings in Transformers, and I'm talking about, indeed, Cyclonus. Just for fun, I broke out the Combiner Wars one. It's not in my collection anymore, but like I've said in the past, I'm not the only collector in the house, and I figured, you know what, why not break out old Combiner War Cyclonus for a bit of fun. This is one of those modes that some people said, would this be a Unicronian mode? I get what you're saying. I understand why you would say that. Again, it's not of this Earth. We don't have planes on Earth that look like this. However, I can totally believe that there would be planes on Cybertron that look like this. There's probably planes on Gobatron that look like this too. Shout out to GotBots. Yeah, whether it's a Unicron alt mode or a Cybertronian alt mode, it's not of this Earth, and Cyclonus, with his sleek, beautiful plane, takes the number 9 slot. Funny enough, at number 8, I always thought that this was a futuristic Earth mode, but fans don't necessarily feel the same way, and it's this guy, Hot Rod. Now, it's really interesting because his official vehicle mode is described as futuristic race car. So apparently this is what they thought a race car was going to look like in the future. I understand how you would probably say Cybertronian mode because we don't have any cars, as many cars as we have that are aerodynamic. I don't know if we have any this aerodynamic. Maybe a few exotic cars. But you throw on the thrusters and the spoiler. I get why it would have a very alien type of feel. I was a bit iffy on counting Hot Rod, but enough fans voted for him, enough fans felt that his mode is Cybertronian that I really couldn't deny it, and he took the number 8 slot. 7 is an interesting one because it's, this big boy, Omega Supreme. Now, the majority of votes, it's almost like a sub-list here. There were a few versions of Omega Supreme that had votes. 4 separate versions of Omega Supreme that had votes, as a matter of fact. When I put all of the votes together, Omega's able to come in here at number 7. But if I was to rank them individually by vote, this is a bit interesting. This is a bit different. It would go animated at number 4. It would go G1 at number 3. It would go, was it animated? Yeah, animated at number 4. G1 at number 3. Siege at number 2. And at number 1 would be the War for Cybertron, Fall of Cybertron video game series version. They're all some iteration of like the track and the rocket and stuff. Naturally, in a couple of those fictions, he never even left Cybertron, right? So why would he have an Earth mode? Even with the G1, you could say that, his shuttle is, or his rocket, is able to do like interstellar travel. You could say that his tank isn't an Earth tank. I get it. Some version of Omega Supreme, the one that stands out the most to me naturally is animated since it turns into an arc spaceship thing. Omega Supreme, almost any version of them, took the number 7 slot. Number 6 is a funny tie with both the War for Cybertron video game and Fall of Cybertron video game versions of Optimus Prime. Yes, I transformed the Fall of Cybertron version. No, I didn't want to go through the headache and pain in the neck that it is to transform the War for Cybertron version. By the way, this is a 3-pack version, if you're wondering why his deco looks a little bit different. Both of these are tremendous, really tremendous, but they are obviously not Earth mode trucks. Fun story, Starscream wife, when one of the scraplets got this guy many moons ago, I think it was for Christmas, Starscream wife, without instructions, tried to figure out how to transform him, thinking, as she has often said, thought he transformed into a truck. I didn't know what he transformed into, that Cybertronian weird looking thing. So she really kind of struggled with it, and I get it because there's so many moving parts and stuff here. You really need to know what this guy is supposed to look like in both alt modes if you're going to accomplish it. Yeah, this is not an Earth truck, this is not an Earth truck, but they're both obviously Optimus Prime trucks. And we know that because they're red and blue. Optimus Prime, from the video games, from that great series, that great High Moon series, either iteration took the number 6 slot. And a hush falls over the crowd because we have reached the most coveted of locations, the halfway mark. And at the halfway mark, we actually have one that I thought was going to rank higher, one that we have never had, like an actual alt mode version of, and it's Wheeljack, my boy Wheeljack. Now, I don't have him in his alt mode because his alt mode is the Earth mode, right? That Lancia like race car. Those who, for some weird, peculiar, strange reason, don't know what his Cybertronian mode is like, all I can say to you is this: it is shown pretty much right away in the very first G1 Season 1 Episode 1 show, right? Like it's first 2 or 3 minutes you see Wheeljack in that alt mode. There have been a few customs that I've seen done where Wheeljack has had a alt mode kind of done out of the Siege Ironhide mold. Looks pretty good. One could also argue that the buzzworthy Bumblebee Studio Series version has a Cybertronian alt mode, even though it doesn't look like the G1 one. So there's a couple of iterations out there where you can either customize it or where you can sort of say, it's not the G1 alt mode, but it is not an Earth alt mode either. I get it. Wheeljack, I think those who voted for him meant that more almost hover truckish type of alt mode that he had in G1, the one that a lot of people have customized using the Siege Ironhide or Siege Ratchet mold. I totally understand it. They've turned out really well. Maybe one day we actually will get Wheeljack in his Cybertronian alt mode. I know the fans would love to see it. The proof is in the pudding because enough of them remember his alt mode, remember him looking the way he did on Cybertron, that he was easily able to take the number 5 slot. Top 4, man. Top 4. And at number 4 we have Primus. I mean, it's hard to get more of a Cybertronian alt mode than, you know, transforming into Cybertron itself. Yeah, I get it. It's funny, when I asked this question, I never ever thought of Primus, but as people started voting for him, I was like, yeah, naturally Primus. That makes perfect sense. How this guy didn't end up being number 1 is sort of beyond me. Maybe a lot of voters just didn't think of him the same way I didn't think of him, but Primus is Cybertron. Had to be on the list, and he took the number 4 slot. And now we dive right into number 3, and at number 3 we have one that again was a little bit of a surprise to me with Shockwave. Now, to be fair, a lot of people voted for the Siege Shockwave, but a lot more people voted for the Fall of Cybertron version of Shockwave. I'm not gonna lie, whether we're talking about his like G1 blaster cannon mode thing, whether we're talking about Fall of Cybertron, War for Cybertron, or whether we're talking about Siege, all of them are definitely not of Earth. Even if we're talking about Transformers Prime with that tank mode, it's a Cybertronian tank. Every alt mode, I think, outside of maybe alternators, that this guy has had, certainly in mainline, though they've all been different and he's had multiple kind of alt modes, they've all been Cybertronian. They've all been alien. Like I said, with the exception of alternators or Vinyl Tech, whatever you want to call it. I think that might be the case. Maybe somebody could prove me wrong, but to my recollection, they're all either ships or Cybertronian tanks or some sort of, you know, alien laser pistol-y thing. Anyway, you cut it. Shockwave, in any or all of his alt modes, took the number 3 slot. Coming in at number 2 is one that, again, had to be on the list. I'm sure it's popularity vote, but it's Bumblebee. This, of course, is the original Bumblebee. I'm saying the original. This is the Origins Bumblebee that turns into the way he looked in that G1 Episode 1 Season 1 episode. Now, some of the votes that came in for Bumblebee also came in for the War for Cybertron, Fall of Cybertron iteration, like the way he looked in what did the 2010 Generations line say, right? Which is also a great Bumblebee, to be honest with you. And definitely a Cybertronian alt mode. So whether you're talking like video game Cybertronian alt mode or G1 Cybertronian alt mode, Bumblebee took the number 2 slot. And finally, here we are at the very tippy top. And at number 1 we have the Tetrajet mold. Now, this is Acid Storm, and I just took him out because why not? Have some fun with them. How often do I get to take out Acid Storm, right? But funny enough, none of the votes for the Tetrajet mold were for Acid Storm. I'm going to do sort of a sub list here because the Tetrajets really could have taken the top 3 slots. on the list. At number 3, we would have had Thundercracker. At number 2, Skywarp. And at number 1, naturally, Tetrajet Starscream. So I sort of lumped them all together, just to fit as many as I could on the list. But officially, 3, 2, and 1 could have been Thundercracker, Skywarp, and Starscream. The Tetrajet mold. The plane from Cybertron. Oh, and there were a couple of votes for the Bumblebee movie Tetrajet design as well. So, like, there's been a few designs of the Tetrajet, but we all know that the Decepticon jets, when they're on Cybertron, regardless of how they look, we call them Tetrajets. It is perhaps the best known of all Cybertronian alt modes, and it took the number 1 slot. And there you go, 10 down to 1. One more time, we've gone from everything in between, Omega Supreme to Bumblebee, from the Tetrajets to Primus himself. What else got votes that didn't appear on the list? We had votes for the Revenge of the Fallen Tank Megatron, for the Last Night Megatron. We had votes for Super Megatron. We had votes for Unicron Trilogy Megatron. Yeah, a lot of Megatrons. For RID 2015 Sideswipe. For Springer. For War for Cybertron Dragstrip. I don't know of him having an alt mode that was Cybertronian. Slag. But to be fair, that was a vote, I think, for the Dinobots DYNO. Speaking of which, that Grimlock, the Dinobots DYNO, I think it was maybe from War Within, maybe. Again, they had Cybertronian modes that were not dinosaurs. 6 Shot, somebody said he has like 6 Cybertronian modes, right? 5 or 6 Cybertronian modes. Cosmos, Vector Prime, Orion Pax. What else do we have here? Brainstorm. The Last Night Megatron, if I didn't say. Blur. Twin Twist, who I mentioned earlier. Animated Optimus Prime, because he definitely had a Cybertronian alt mode as well. Jazz, who I thought was going to show a lot stronger than what he did. What else did we have here? Siege Jetfire. Impactor. Strafe. And let's say the RID/Siege, because I kind of lumped these together, Ultra Magnus, because the RID alt mode, being that I'm going to call it Cybertronian Truck, is very much what the Siege was homaging, right? With its alt mode. So there you go. Them and more. Votes everywhere, man, for Cybertronian modes. This was an interesting one for sure, and it definitely made people think. Let me know if your favorite Cybertronian alt mode made the list or not. I appreciate you coming by, giving me some of your extremely valuable time. I do know how important it is to you. If you're in a position to help the channel to grow, you can use the donate link. You can check us out on Patreon. You can see what we have to offer to you through Spring, or of course, you can hit the join button right here on YouTube and become a channel member at any time. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button, stick around, have some fun with us. Also, don't forget that somehow, some way, each and every single day, you right there, you sitting right there, you do make a difference. And I look forward to the next time that you and I get together to have another visit, either in the live streams on Thursday nights, at the stop motion premieres, or the old-fashioned way, right here inside the videos.